Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. I'm here with the miserable liberal and Ron Placone. How you doing?
Oh, good, Jimmy. Good to
look,
see
those
you.
are
Thirst is very quenched.
Oh, okay.
Very quenched.
Oh, those are some nice mugs, and that T-shirt's pretty too, Steph. You can get all that stuff at our store. That's a great way to help support us because they keep demonetizing us. But guess what? You see this guy? That guy is, his name is Representative Tom Marino. He's from Pennsylvania. And Trump nominated him to be the head of he's to be the drug czar, right? And we got a big opioid problem happening in the United States. And well, it turns out the reason why we have a big opioid, well, one of the big reasons is that the pharmaceutical industry has bought our government. And that guy's bought, they're all bought, and which is why we pay twice as much, and probably sometimes 10 times as much for our pharmaceuticals as the rest of the world. But what was happening? What was exactly happening? Well, according to The Hill, DEA, Congress complicit in U.S. opioid epidemic, say whistleblowers. No kidding. Kind of like how Congress is complicit in all the gun sales, and all, kind of how that is, because they get money from the NRA and gun manufacturers, and then they don't legislate in favor of the people. They legislate in favor of profits for guns. Turns out they're in bed with the pharmaceutical industry. They legislate. So the government, I don't know if you're paying close attention, is out to get you. They're not working for you. They're working against you. Why? Because we have the craziest system to finance our campaigns, which is taking money from corporations. And then they find it, and you wonder why we have a corporatocracy. We live in an oligarchy. So according to The Hill, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration shut off investigations into large distributions of addictive opioid pills, while a new law made it nearly impossible to prosecute them, the agency's former employees said. During the Obama administration, the drug industry used their money and influence to pressure top lawyers at the DEA to take a softer approach. The drug industry used their money and influence to pressure top lawyers at the DEA to take a softer approach to investigating large distributors of opioid pills, even when there was ample evidence of suspicious dealings, says Joe Ranazisi, if that's how you say his name, former head of the DEA's Office of Diversion Control. He told the 60 Minutes program. This was a joint investigation of the Washington Post and 60 Minutes. And there you go. What? So I mean, how could they? Money and influence. What do you mean, money and influence? What do you mean? But you know, like, did they bribe them, or well, maybe they promised them a bribe. What do I mean by that?
46 investigators, attorneys, and supervisors from the DEA, including 32 from the division that regulate the drug industry, have been hired by the pharmaceutical industry since scrutiny on distributors began. Among them, Lyndon Barber, former associate chief counsel at the DEA. He's now senior vice president at Arno Health, one of the nation's top drug distributors.
That's our government. So these guys at a big corporation, they go to the regulating body that regulates them. They talk to the guys in there and they go, hey, if you guys go easy, I'm going to give you millions of dollars when you get out. They go, okay. They do it. There it is. They do it right in your face. Just like Barack Obama does it. Hey, if you relax the regulations on our banks and you don't do anything to really get us on, we'll give you $500,000 at a pop when you come out when you retire from being president. He does it. They give him $500,000 at a pop when he gives speeches. It's corruption. It's right in your face. They're doing it right in your face. And you're supposed to keep voting for this. This is what you're supposed to vote for. This is the system Hillary Clinton props up. This is the system the Democrats prop up. Dianne Feinstein, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, the Democratic National Committee. This is the system they prop up. Tom Perez, this is the system they prop up. So that, what? Huh? How do they use their money and influence? That's how they use it. They're going to, hey, we can't bribe you right out, but we're going to bribe you when you get out. That's a bribe. Former attorney at the DEA, Jonathan Novak, told CBS that in 2013, he also noticed a sea change in the way prosecutions of big distributors were handled, as his supervisors turned down cases they would have once easily approved. The DEA operates under the Department of Justice. these were not cases where it was black, where it was gray. These were not cases where it was black, where it was gray. These were cases where evidence was crystal clear that there was wrongdoing going on, and the DEA wouldn't investigate or prosecute. Jim Geldof, another former DEA investigator, told the program about a West Virginia case he was looking into where 11 million pills wound up in one of its counties with a population of only 25,000. 11 million pills in a county of 25,000 people. Wow. He said he suddenly ran into roadblocks from the DEA supervisor. Every time I talked to this guy, he wanted something else. And I'd get it for him, and then that's still not good enough, Geldof said. And this goes on and on and on. And when these roadblocks keep getting thrown in your face, at the point, you know they just don't want the case. Isn't this fantastic? But they're still throwing people in jail for marijuana. Meanwhile, all the fat cats at the top of the agencies that's supposed to be enforcing drug laws, they're all being corrupted and bribed. All of them. There was a lot of pills, a lot of people dying, and we had tools in our toolbox to try to use and stem that flow. But it seemed down in headquarters that the toolbox was shut off. So they not only did they do that, they got the Congress, the House, the Senate, and the goddamn President Barack Obama to sign a bill, well, this bill. The bill called Ensuring Patient Access and Effective Drug Enforcement Act was signed into law by President Obama last year after it was passed by both chambers of Congress. Without any fanfare, by the way. It got passed. Nobody even talked about it. And what does this bill do? Well, critics say it effectively strips the DEA of its authority to investigate suspicious transactions, as the government is now required to meet a higher standard before taking enforcement actions. Your government is out to get you. They're working against you. That's the government we have now. Government is actively working against you. After Ranazzisi accused the bills, get this. So one of these whistleblowers accuses co-sponsors of the bill, Tom Marino, that guy I just showed you who Trump nominated to be drug czar. He accused that guy, Tom Marino, and Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. Those are the co-sponsors of this bill. He accused them of protecting distributors under his investigation. So this guy's investigating these people. They're passing a law to thwart his investigation. He says that he calls them out. And what happened? Blackburn and Marino wrote to the Inspector General for the Justice Department demanding that Ranazzisi be investigated for trying to, quote, intimidate the United States Congress. That's the kind of stuff they do. Soon after, Ranazzisi was stripped of his responsibilities. He told the CBS that he went from supervising 600 people to supervising none. So he resigned. That's your government working against you. The government is not there to help you. There right now, the government, the corrupted, bought government, that includes the Democrats, includes Barack Obama, because he signed that goddamn bill. Barack Obama signed that goddamn bill. So did Congress. So did all the Democrats and Senate. There you go. But it's just Trump. Trump is the only. He's such a bad guy, that Trump. What? They're all corrupt. They steal right in your face. Barack Obama does it with a nice smile and polite conversation. Trump does it in a very, very brutal way. So they don't like him.
I got to give a quick shout out to my home state, man, Pennsylvania. They got Tom Marino. Just recently we had Tim Murphy. We got the ultimate blank suit Democrat, Bob Casey. You look at the Keystone State and you'll learn real quick why they were the state that somehow let Rick Santorum get close to power.
Yeah.
Another chapter.
And how does this happen? What about people talk about the revolving door in politics and how does this happen?
46 investigators, attorneys, and supervisors from the DEA, including 32 from the division that regulate the drug industry, have been hired by the pharmaceutical industry since scrutiny on distributors began. Among them, Lyndon Barber, former associate chief counsel at the DEA. He's now senior vice president at Cardinal Health, one of the nation's top drug distributors.
Your government has already been taken from you. You know, I was having a conversation with Steve O on Aggressive Progressives last week, and he said it was really important. We really need the Washington Post and the New York Times. We really need them so we can have a functioning democracy. I had to point out, we don't have a functioning democracy. And a lot of it is because of the shit job the New York Times and the Washington Post does, even though this is a story broken by the Washington Post. We don't have a functioning democracy. We don't even have a democracy. We have an oligarchy. We have an oligarchy. And guess who wants it that way? Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos at the Washington Post. Guess who else? Comcast. Guess who else? Time Warner, who owns CNN. Guess who else? New York Times. They want it that way. Here's a tweet by Andrew Jarrell Jones. He says, at least Poppy Harlow at CNN was honest, but a real indictment again of her and centrist media, not knowing about a bill tying the DEA hands on opioids. So you'd think there would be a reporter at CNN, at the New York Times, at MSNBC that's dedicated to, like, maybe checking out the bills that get passed in Congress every day. Maybe they just have one reporter. That's their job. What got passed today, reporter? What bills are up, reporter? We have a little YouTube show. We don't have the funds to have someone dedicated to doing that and doing all the other stuff. Everybody here does about 5 jobs. But I'm sure CNN has a big enough war chest. I mean, they give Trump's campaign manager $500,000 to spew propaganda on their show. I'm sure they can hire a reporter to check out what bills are being passed. Right?
Look me in the eye and tell me what bills were passed today, bill passer person.
So here's Poppy Harlow over at CNN.
To be clear, not a single member of the Senate or the House objected to this legislation. It passed in both chambers by unanimous consent. President Obama signed it. No fanfare. I don't think most Americans didn't even know about it. I didn't know about it. Why? Why did it fall through so many cracks if it had this big of an impact?
Because you're all bought by the same people. That's why. Because the same people who bought off the DEA and bought the Congress and bought the Senate and bought Barack Obama are the same people who advertise on your network. The pharmaceutical industry. They bought you off too. That's why. You're not, because Poppy, you didn't get hired because you're an amazing investigative journalist. I don't know if you look around CNN, there aren't any. Why do you think there aren't any investigative journalists investigating stuff except bullshit like Russia? Because your advertisers don't want you investigating stuff. That's why. You're not paid to do they're not buying advertising and giving you money so you can do investigations. They're buying advertising and giving you money so you don't do investigations. The criminals bought the cops, meaning the news media. They're bought by the people who are supposed to be investigating. So there you have it. Your country. That's under Barack Obama and the Democrats, by the way. That's who did that. So this idea that Trump is this unbelievably corrupt guy and we never saw anything like it. Your government is 100% corrupted. 100%. We could have free college right now, but they decided to give $80 billion more a year to bombs with no debate. Your government has already been taken from you. These people wagging their finger at people for voting for third parties. We should be voting for third, fourth, fifth, sixth parties. Because two-party duopoly gets you Donald Trump. Gets you half a country that's poor or low income. That's what a two-party system gets you. And it's completely corrupted. And Tom Perez doesn't give a shit about you. Tom Perez wants to screw you. That's why he doesn't want to give you Medicare for all. All the Democrats. That's all of them. This is really happening. That really happened. That's going on right now. So he withdrew this guy's nomination, Tom Marino, because of this. He withdrew that guy's nomination. Did they repeal the law? Are they going to investigate those guys who went to work for the pharmaceutical industry who used to be at the DEA? Are those guys going to be investigated? Are they going to pass a law that makes that kind of revolving door between the government and the regulators and the industries they're supposed to be regulating, that revolving door? They're going to pass a law that stops that? No. They're doing it right in your face. And no one at MSNBC is going to talk about how Barack Obama signed off on this. They're not going to talk about why. Why? Because he's corrupted. Because he's bought. The whole goddamn politics in America is bought. Which is why everything's broken. Which is why 30 million people in the richest country in the world still don't have health care. Which is why we have endless war and everyone's going bankrupt at home. Which is why GoFundMe's number one thing is for medical surgeries. That's why it's all coming back to this. And Bernie Sanders' idea that he can reform this, you're going to reform this, is a pipe dream. You're not going to be able to reform these son of a bitches from the inside. It's worth a try. Hey, try everything. I'm not wagging my finger at Bernie Sanders. He's doing great work. He's the only guy talking about stuff. I think you got to cross the Democratic Party. I just don't see this happening. We have the Democrats here in California. We thought we took over the party. They have super delegates at the state level. There's no way they're letting go of you. They're not letting go of the party. They're not letting go of the corporate cash. They're not going to stop screwing you. They're not going to stop screwing you. Your government, the Democrats. I don't know anything I have to say. This not only does this validate everything we've said here on this show since the day one. But it also exposes the media. It just exposes how they're just complicit. They didn't know about this. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You know, Jimmy, when it wasn't that long ago that all these, it seemed like these conservative politicians were saying, we have an opioid problem in our country. We need to solve this problem.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they're doing this.
Yes. And it's like, of course they're screwing us. Of course they're pretending that they care about this emergency situation. And for one, in the book Fahrenheit 451, they talk about how all these people have to start, taking sleeping pills because there's this constant war that's happening in the background. It seems pretty similar. Why are people trying to get high? Why do they want to? Why? Right. Because one, they're living in poverty.
Yes.
Two, there's no jobs unless it's war.
Right.
So who wouldn't get on drugs? I think it's desperate situation for Americans.
63% of the Americans don't have $1,000 in savings. 63% of Americans.
I wanted to add a side note to something you said earlier, too, that connects all this. I mean, you mentioned, they're still throwing people in jail for pot. Part of the reason they're able to do that, it can be traced back to the pharmaceutical industry. Those are all the tentacles the pharmaceutical industry has. So, they bought out law enforcement because back in the day, they wanted to make sure that pot was a Class A drug. So they didn't want anything competing with what they were trying to profit off of, pain pills and what have you. So, they have the cops, they have the media, and they have the politicians. And in some cases, they have doctors.
Yeah. Yep. So there you go. Nice work, United States. We need a revolution. We need a revolution. We need people in the streets. Mass. That's the only thing that's going to change the system. Because this all comes from the same thing. This all comes from why we have never-ending war. This is why we have 5 banks that screw you over. This is why we bailed out our economy on the backs of 5.1 million families who we kicked out of their homes. This is why we spend twice as much for our health care as the rest of the world with worse outcomes. This is why we have 30 million people uninsured, have no health care in America. It's because why we have private prisons. This is why we're the world's biggest penal colony. It's all the same thing. Our politicians are all bought. They're all bribed and they're all corrupted. That's just a fact. And everyone walks around like, hey, that's the way it goes. You can't bring a spoon to a knife fight. Your government has already been taken from you. It's time for a revolution. The next live Jimmy Dore show is November 6th in Burbank, California, and November 12th in Portland, Oregon. Link for tickets right there.